set mangled and twisted around a toppled tree still hanging there 1 year after the tornado moved through Essex County. We're just off of Deshay Road, one of the hardest hit places in the county, and a look at this ravine is a really fantastic picture into the size and the strength of that EF3 tornado that came through the county and, as you can see, took down just about every single tree in its way. 1 year ago, we introduced you to the family that lived on this property. We're catching up with them again tonight and seeing just how far they've come in the time since that tornado.
It's hard to believe, but cleanup and recovery still continues. 1 full year after powerful tornadoes ravaged 3 communities in Virginia. 4 people were killed a year ago today, among them a 2-year-old boy and an elderly man.
The hardest hit areas were Essex and Appomattox counties and the town of Waverly in Sussex County. People in these areas have spent the past 12 months rebuilding after last year's deadly storms. We have live team coverage tonight on the ground in the most heavily impacted neighborhoods. We'll take you to Waverly, where a vigil will be held tonight to honor the lives lost, and we'll show you how to prepare for a tornado.
But we begin tonight with Drew Wilder. He's standing by live in Essex County with a look back. Drew?
Yeah, Kurt, the devastation here in Essex County is still breathtaking a year later. The EF3 tornado came right through this area and, as you can see, cleared out all of the trees. As we move around, I'll show you, we're just off of Kino Road. This is one of the hardest hit areas here in Essex County, and just across Kino, you can see that front porch. There used to be a trailer attached to that. That trailer home was taken out in the tornado. And then even further still beyond that, a brand new home going up for a man who lost his home in this tornado. We're going to tell you a little bit about that house build coming up a little bit later in our coverage. But tonight we start with a group of volunteers who are helping out some of the most by this tornado that came through a year ago. In all, there were about 90 homes that were impacted in some way. Of those 90, about a dozen or so homes were owned by people that either didn't have insurance at all or were underinsured and didn't have the means to rebuild themselves. So this group of local volunteers is doing what they can to make sure even those with the least means have a place to call home.
Because we're not going to have room to get them in. That's it. That's perfect. Okay.
How often do we take for granted the roof over our heads? Lewis Johnson won't take that for granted. The 89-year-old is watching volunteers build the frame for a new roof to cover his head. Across town, a similar story. A family thankful for a home. Moreover, thankful they're alive.
Next, I remember waking up and the whole house is just on us.
Melanie Blue's family is in a rental, recovering from injuries and waiting for doctors to clear them to go back to work. The majority of this made possible by a group of local volunteers, funding home builds, paying rent, and spending countless hours organizing all of it and then some.
With the houses, they are going to provide a refrigerator and
They would probably do a refrigerator and a range, and remember we had talked about if we could beg, borrow, or steal washer dryers.
Mm-hmm.
It's truly a wonder how they keep going at this huge undertaking. Candine Johnson and Roy Foster are piecing together the next steps for the long-term recovery group.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're 2 of the 8 people raising money to support projects and sustain life for the people in Essex County who were underinsured or uninsured. They keep going to keep the rest of their community going.
Not that it's ever good where a tornado hits, but it hit some of the poorest people in our community.
Sometimes you look at them and they say they suffered enough, and why is it, you almost ask yourself, why do they have to even go through more? Why can't we get them in a home?
And they are. The people they're helping lived in ancestral homes. They don't have mortgages, so they're not required to insure their houses. As Johnson says, insurance is a luxury item they can't afford. But with the help of an $875,000 block grant, local donations, and countless volunteer hours, this community is fighting for itself.
I never thought that a tragedy would be needed in a community to unify it, but that has happened here, and it's a wonderful thing to see.
Gives you some hope.
It gives you hope.
The long-term recovery group formed last May and expects to serve until next May. The work isn't going as quickly as they'd like, but the families we talked with are not concerned about that. They're short of words to express their gratitude. And when words weren't enough, one woman in Essex County found a different way to express her gratitude.
That one person was so moved by the efforts and the volunteer work of this community, she's actually volunteered her time to go on a trip of her own to help someone else.
What does that say to you?
You know, it's just amazing to know that we've made that kind of difference in someone's life. And
Keeps you going.
it keeps you going. It keeps you going.
Now, the families impacted here in Essex County should be considered very lucky when you consider the gentleman who lost his life in Appomattox and the 3 people that were killed in Waverly that night. Now, the destruction from this outbreak left a lasting scar on another part of our state. An EF3 tornado carved a 13-mile path of destruction through the Evergreen area of Appomattox. 1 person died, 7 others were hurt. In the immediate aftermath, it was the high school's football team who leapt into action, working to help with the cleanup there. And although there was a sense of sympathy and, of course, sadness, there was also a sense of community pride.
I knew we were going to get through it because God only put his toughest soldiers through his toughest battles, and we got through it together. And like Coach Smith always told us, do not take anything for granted. So we built that on the power of one, and we took that and just ran with it.
And our kids giving that back the very next day, getting out in the community, helping to clean up, helping people out, was amazing.
Now, 1 year later, students throughout Appomattox County High School continue to find ways to give back to this community. And as you've seen, dozens of homes were destroyed by these tornadoes 1 year ago, and there's really only so much you can do to protect your home, but there are steps you can take to make sure you and your family make it out alive. Meteorologist Andrew Frieden has that part of our team coverage coming up for you in just about 10 minutes. But for now, we'll send it back into the studio. Kurt and Sabrina, back to you.
Drew, thanks very much. You have to admire the cooperation and resilience of the people in those communities.
We'll check back, Drew. Thank you.
I'm just off of Kino Road in Essex County, one of the hardest hit areas when that EF3 tornado came through a year ago. You can see the tornado came right through here and toppled just about every single tree in its way. Along with it, it took out a lot of homes. Just across the road, some houses taken out, new ones being built in its place. At 5 o'clock, I introduced you to the long-term recovery group who's helping out some of these families who need it the most. One of those families was the family injured the most out of anyone else here in Essex County, and tonight they are sharing their story on camera with us for the first time.
It was a pretty normal night getting dinner ready. In the other room, the TVs were tuned into weather coverage.
In all my years here, I've never seen so many tornado warnings out of one outbreak here in Central Virginia.
So that's when I wound up calling my aunt, and I just told her how I felt, you know, about the situation. And she was like,
Feel about the situation?
I was really scared.
Jason, Melanie, and her 3 kids ran into the closet. Melanie's son heard it coming.
And he was like, Mom, listen. So I listened, and it sounds like a train is coming wide open to the house.
The moments after are blurry, but they're the moments a family of faith would call miraculous.
I remember my kids being, like, actually pulled from me because I had my arms around them. And then I don't remember, like, actually being in the tornado, though. Next I remember waking up, and the whole house is just on us.
And the first sound this mother of 3 hears.
Screaming, Mommy, help me.
Her youngest daughter, Aaliyah.
When I went to move to try to get to her, that's when I realized this leg was broke. This leg was broken in half.
Then she watched her son, Devontre, get up and try to help his oldest sister, Jada. One look at her, and he faints.
When he woke back up, he told me that he see his sister's leg up by her head.
Imagine hearing your children cry out for you and being unable to get to them.
She's screaming, Mommy, help me, Mommy, help me. And I couldn't go get her. And then my other 2 kids, my son, he's trying, but he's so hurt that he keeps passing out because something hit him on the side of his head also. So it was hard, like, to just lay there.
But that's when Melanie says her faith in God was reaffirmed. Little miracles sprinkled among the pieces of their home she closed her eyes and said a prayer.
So after that prayer, I opened my eyes up and my phone lit up right beside me. My phone, I still have it, it's right here. This phone was in the tornado. It lit up right beside me.
Of all the things scattered around her property, her phone lands right beside her. She calls for help, but the streets were covered with debris and downed power lines.
At first, it was very hopeless because I thought that no one couldn't get us out.
The injury tally is enough to make your head spin. Melanie broke her femur, her pelvis in 2 places, a vertebrae in her neck and her nose. Jason suffered a concussion, fractured his right shoulder, and dislocated a bone in his right arm. He broke his left arm in 20 places and cut his stomach open. Then the kids. 12-year-old Jada broke her left femur, injured her ACL, and cut her face. 17-year-old Devontre broke his collarbone and lost hearing in one ear for a while from a hard hit to the side of his head. But as for the baby of the family, 7-year-old Aaliyah, whose small body could physically withstand the least, virtually untouched.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing. And she, like I said, she was the one that was covered, completely covered. You know, she had was a scratch.
He definitely had an angel with us.
Those moments a family of faith call miraculous.
Are you surprised that you all survived?
Yeah, because when I knelt down in that closet, I thought that was it.
The last year has been very trying for this family. They're staying in a rental home with the help from donors because doctors haven't cleared them to return to work.
It's not helping the healing process. It's been a year, and I'm just ready to do something. Something, I don't know.
But in the times Melanie and Jason struggle physically and emotionally, they stop and count their blessings.
You can replace material things, but you can't replace a life. So that's how I stay positive, that I still get to see my children grow up.
The home that the Blues were living in is over on Deshay Road, not far from where we're at here off of Kino. Also on Deshay was the former home of the St. John's Baptist Church. It used to stand there, but now all that remains is a pavilion, and that pavilion is actually relatively new. The historic church was destroyed a year ago. That church had basic insurance, but it's not nearly enough to build a new facility. So for the time being, that congregation is using this pavilion as a place to worship and be together. They are still fundraising to try and build a new facility. Now, just down from the pavilion on Deshay Road, volunteers working on several new houses. In fact, one of those houses is down here off of Kino Road, just across the street from where we're standing now. Coming up at 6 o'clock, hear the future homeowner's emotional reaction to all of the incredible support that he's received both from those volunteers and also his community here in Essex. That's the latest from here now in Essex County. Sabrina, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
Drew, those stories and images are harrowing, but the strength and determination of those families is admirable. Thank you for your coverage.
We are on your side with team coverage tonight. Brent Solomon is live in Waverly, where the community is gathering for a special vigil tonight.
But we begin with Drew Wilder live in Essex County. Drew, the tornado did not kill anyone there, but in terms of damage, this area may have been the hardest hit.
Yeah, Sabrina, and it's still a mess. Even a year later, we're just off of Kino Road where that EF3 tornado came through and, as you can see, did a whole lot of damage to the area around here. Still scattered all over the place here off of Kino Road. Here's a piece of a roof, and there's even pieces of siding still laying here. And several of the homes that were hit were just across Kino Road. One of those homes belonged to 88-year-old Lewis Johnson. And at 88 years old, he has spent the last year doing handiwork for another family here in the area as a way to pay rent for a place to stay. But in this last year, a group of volunteers has come together, they've raised some money, and they're building Johnson a brand new home.
So what we gotta do, we gotta lay these out 2 foot on center.
Tim White is a former construction worker who's leading a group of volunteers on
You just find ways to put people to use. Come to 2 foot, 3/4 this way, 3/4 this way.
Lewis Johnson is that motivation.
I know you're looking forward to be back in your house.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I was born here in 1928.
But that home was destroyed by the tornado. I first met Johnson last year, 3 months after the tornado hit, when his neighbors were helping him get along.
I've had some wonderful neighbors here. they've been really, they've been really good to me.
The volunteers are organized by the United Methodist Committee on Relief, or UMCOR. Forrest White oversees this project and several others like it.
So, Forrest, we can see a lot of destruction still here in Essex County. You've been on a lot of these sites. What's it like, not so much with the destruction, but working with the people who have went through probably the most traumatic experience of their life?
Well, absolutely. The people come first. The project is second. They are at some point in a healing process, and we are there to offer them comfort and an ear to listen. We don't always have answers. Some things in life don't make sense, but we believe that it is our presence there that reminds them that God is with them and God has not abandoned them.
Johnson has made a point to come out to this job site a few times, even lending a hand to show his appreciation. White and the other volunteers say helping Johnson back into a home is giving them a lot in return.
There's a lot of divisiveness in the world right now, and so for me personally, it's like I wanted to quit focusing on that and just start working in the community. If we can fix our own community, then I think the rest of the world will take care of itself, and we worry about our own backyard first.
Now, there are still a few homes volunteers will work on during the next year. They hope to have Johnson's home finished up in the next few weeks. And all of this work organized and much of it paid for by the faith community here in Essex County. And recovery crews in Essex County actually made a little bit of history in the days and weeks after the tornado hit. Essex County EMS is one of the first, if not the first ever, to use drones to survey the damage in the area following a tornado. Take a look at this video shot from above Essex County in the days following the tornado. Because of this work, EMS Chief Jimmy Brand was invited to the National Tornado Summit out in Oklahoma City just last week. Brand gave a presentation about the use of drones for damage assessment and why it proved to be so beneficial.
You can see a whole lot more from the air than you can on the ground. The terrain in Essex and topography in different areas. We got marshland, we got some gullies and all, a lot of farmland. So it covered the area very quickly, and like I said, it produced some very good photographs.
Brand says the clear photos help the county estimate their damage costs. Now, coming up tonight at 7 o'clock, this community is hosting an event to celebrate how far everyone here has come in the last year. First responders and survivors will speak at this event. It's at 7 o'clock. It's over at the Firehouse on Airport Road, and it starts in just about 45 minutes. Brent, thanks very much. An EF3 tornado also touched down in Appomattox County, changing hundreds of lives there in a matter of minutes. The twister carved a 13-mile path of destruction. It killed one person and injured 7 others.
I could replay this whole 1 year back for myself, and I said, you know, we can't let a year go by and not let people know how much God has done for us in a year.
Dozens gathered at Evergreen Baptist Church for a vigil last night. They called it Remember and Rejoice because they didn't want to just mourn on what was lost. They also wanted to celebrate the progress that's been made and look towards the future. Around the community of Evergreen, you'll already find many newly rebuilt homes. Now, be sure to tune in tonight for NBC 12 News at 11. The emotional struggle this woman and her family are living through right now. We first met Candy Polk when she was released from the hospital a couple of days after the tornado. Tonight at 11, she explains how she and her 2 kids are experiencing PTSD like fear from storms and loud noises that remind them of the sound they heard when the tornado tore through their home 1 year ago tonight. Again, look for that coverage coming up tonight at 11. But for now, I'm live and on your side in Essex County. Drew Wilder, NBC 12 News. Kurt and Sabrina.
Drew, thanks very much. We're grateful to everyone who let us in to check on the progress there.
In fact, a year later, families in Essex County tell us they are struggling with symptoms similar to PTSD. When it storms or they hear loud noises, it stirs up the memories of the horror they lived 1 year ago tonight. Drew Wilder is in Essex County with a family who says they still live in fear.
This area is still torn up. A year after that EF3 tornado moved through, it came right through this area, and as you can see, it took out just about everything in its path. There's still pieces of roof, still pieces of siding laying here a year later, a lot of which was thrown across the street from the houses that used to be there. Just around the corner from where I'm at now, over on Deshay Road, is another family who lost their home that night. They're dealing with the loss of that, but also something that stuck with them in the year since the tornado came through.
This exposed cinder block used to be part of her home's foundation.
So the house was here and you guys were inside of it, and then you ended up, was it out that way?
Yeah, in the field out that way.
We first met Candy Polk when she got out of the hospital 2 days after the tornado hit. She walked us through the rubble of her home and told us the horror of finding her son injured.
My son, he was pouring blood. I didn't know if he was still alive or not.
How's he doing now?
He's doing good now.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Polk broke her nose, a toe, and doctors found a hole in her lung. Her daughter broke her arm, but a year removed from that horrible night,
and I was trying to get to them.
You can see this family is getting along. It's been a difficult journey here, but they're in a new home now.
It was hard. Trying to get everything back together and try to get the kids back to their new home and everything and go back to work.
But a year later, fear lingers. It's something we've heard a lot from people here in Essex County, a sort of PTSD reaction to stormy weather and even loud sounds, similar to what they heard the night of the storm tearing through.
I just think something's going to happen, like something coming towards us. Like even if an airplane fly over the house, I get kind of upset. I don't like the noise, yeah.
She says it's worse for her 2 kids.
They just start crying. Even if they hear the airplane, they'll bust out crying. They don't like it.
Their new home is on the same property, and the tree line in the distance is still a mangled reminder of the tornado that nearly killed them.
I mean, does it feel like the family's stronger seeing how powerful this thing was and you guys made it out?
Yeah. I'm just thankful to still be here, to be a mother to the kids, and nothing happened to neither one of us.
Now, despite dealing with some of those emotions and still working their way back from those injuries, the Polk family tells me they are incredibly thankful that they still have each other and that they survived that horrific night 1 year ago. On your side in Essex County, Drew Wilder, NBC 12 News.